You know, that story, that Luke 2 passage, think how many times have you heard that story reenacted? Usually in a nativity play, little kids dressed up with, bathrobes as shepherds and such. Usually those nativity plays are adults wrote them and kids acted out. Well, what would happen if you had actually kids who wrote the Christmas play and adults dress up and act them out? It might look something like this.
An angel came to see Mary. She was doing laundry, and then the angel just appeared and she was really scared. So Gabriel was like, Mary, you're gonna have, I can't say it good. Mary, you're gonna have a baby. You're gonna have a baby, and you will call him Jesus. And then Mary was like, I'm not gonna have a baby yet. I'm only a teenager. I'm not married. Then the angel Gabriel told Joseph that Mary is not lying. You are having a new baby. And so they met up. They went to Bethlehem, which was Joseph's old town. They ride a donkey. A camel. Oh yeah, a camel. She said, this donkey's fast. Well, they tried to go to a hotel and they asked the keeper for a place to stay. The keeper said, we have no rooms. Literally, no rooms. So Mary and Joseph walked away sadly, but then he said, the only place here in Bethlehem that you can stay is a staple. And then he just pointed the way and they followed. When the shepherds were taking care of the sheep, then they saw angels. The angel said, a new baby is getting born, who is King of the Jews. The angel was singing. And then the shepherd said, I think we should go there and meet him. The second, I think, said, yeah, I agree with you. And the other said, yeah, me too. They had to walk through a bunch of grass and bushes, maybe have to camp out a night. And then the wise men heard about it. And then a star appeared.
Well, we should probably follow that star. It's pointing down to the barn.
So maybe we should follow it. Maybe. So the wise men went to Jesus.
They gave them gifts.
A stuffed animal, like a hippo one, to have at home. Some diapers, and some wipes, and some milk, some shoes, some Jordans. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
And I don't know how it would survive in that barn. Too stinky, too crowded, and ugh.
I think he probably pooped because the room was very smelly. Thank you for coming.
He's adorable.
He's gonna be our best friend.
I love you, and you're the best baby I ever seen. There, I said it.
The new baby is gonna change the world.
So it's fun to see those cute nativity plays, and especially when the little kids we see them each year. But wouldn't it be amazing to have actually been there for the actual event? I mean, to actually see the angels appear in the sky, and to the shepherds, and to see the angels visiting, Mary and Joseph, and to actually see Jesus, the Word, become flesh. John chapter 1:14 says this. One of the eyewitnesses, the disciple, says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we saw his glory. Glory as of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. They saw him. I mean, it would have been amazing to actually see Jesus, to actually see the miracles take place. And sometimes I just think, man, if I could see, if I could have been there, if I'm honest, I sometimes feel like all my doubts would be gone. Anyone besides me sometimes have doubts? It's very natural to have doubts. I mean, I'm a strong believer. It's kind of my job description to be a believer in Jesus. I can articulate the proofs of the resurrection and that our faith is real. It's based on it's a rational faith. There's evidence for our faith. But still, it is faith. We're believing something that we can't see. And so we all struggle with doubts from time to time. It's very natural to struggle with doubts. Sometimes I just wonder, why does God make having faith so difficult? I mean, why doesn't he just show up and just show us beyond a shadow of doubt, show his glory, show that he's real? Or I think, what if I could have just been there to witness the Word becoming flesh and the birth of Jesus, if I could have been there and just witnessed the event, then all of those nagging doubts of mine would go away. Or would they? I mean, maybe they would, but maybe they would not. For there are many who did witness the miracle of the incarnation, that's just a fancy word. It means that God became one of us. God became a human being. It's that we call it the incarnation. And many saw the baby Jesus. They saw him as he is, the God in the flesh, but not all saw his glory. I mean, Herod saw the baby as a political threat. The innkeeper just saw this pregnant couple, normal couple, they just need some help. Got him a room. He didn't see the glory. The reality is that most who saw the incarnation, the miracle baby, the God becoming one of us event, that baby, didn't remove all doubts. In fact, if you look at it from a certain angle, the incarnation, what we call the incarnation, it actually created more problems than it solved. It actually created some obstacles to faith. Because the biggest problem with the incarnation that it created was that in the incarnation, God had somehow become ordinary. Just an ordinary looking baby who grew up to be a very ordinary and not very impressive looking man. Isaiah chapter 53 says this about the coming Messiah, that he had no stately form or majesty, that we should look upon him, nor appearance, that we should be attracted to him. Most who saw him didn't see the glory. They just saw this guy. We just sang, Hark the Herald, one of the lines is, veiled in flesh the Godhead see. The glory was veiled, it was hidden. We see pictures and paintings maybe in a museum of Jesus kind of walking in this world. He usually has a halo, he's kind of glowing. But Isaiah 53 says he had no glow. He didn't radiate anything. He looked just very normal. He was just this guy. And this created a real problem for the people that he was initially sent to reach. Because if you think about it, the people that he was initially sent to reach, the Jews, they had grown up hearing stories of God appearing, the appearances of God in these earth-shattering ways, appearing, excuse me, appearing with as a pillar of smoke, pillar of fire, as, I'm going to grab some water here. Where'd my water go? Down here. Pillar of fire, appearing as burning bush. Every time there was an appearance in the Old Testament, it was an overwhelming experience. Whenever an angel appeared to anyone who had anyone in the Old Testament, they always had to begin with the phrase, fear not. Because it was a terrifying event. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Gideon, Daniel, whenever an angel appeared to them, they had to say, fear not. It was a terrifying event. In Isaiah chapter 6, Isaiah has an experience of experiencing the presence of God. It's a vision, and in that vision, he falls to the ground. And he says, woe is me, I am undone. It was a terrifying, frightening experience to be in the presence of God. Once a year, on what's called the Day of Atonement, a priest would be selected by lot to be the special priest to go into the Holy of Holies in the temple. It was a special place of God's presence. And it was really an honor to be chosen, but it was also kind of scary because what they would do is they would tie a rope around the priest, and he would go in just in case he died when he was in the Holy of Holies. Maybe he had a heart attack, maybe he touched the wrong thing. If he died, then they could just pull him out with a rope because no one would want to risk going in there for fear of God's presence. God's presence was a fearful, scary thing. But now, what we have in the incarnation, in God becoming a man in Jesus, is that God had turned the volume down. He found a way to appear to us and to talk to us without getting blown away, which is great, except that it also had a downside. It means that he came in a very, very normal, ordinary way. You know, people saw the baby Jesus, and they didn't immediately bow down and worship the baby Jesus. I mean, the Magi did, and the shepherds did, because they were kind of let in on the secret, but he was just a normal baby. And people saw Mary and Joseph and their new kid move back home to their hometown of Nazareth. They just thought, well, they're just a nice-looking couple. They're just kind of normal couple. Which led to when Jesus grew up and started his ministry and started to really gather crowds, and people began to treat him as more than just an ordinary person, as something special. Jesus' own relatives didn't believe him because they just saw him as this normal guy, and so his brothers didn't even believe him. His brothers actually thought he was crazy, went to try to collect him because they just saw in him something ordinary. He's just a normal person. If you had been there, what would you have seen? What do you think you would have seen if you had been there? Or let me just rephrase that question. If you were there, what would you want to see? What would you want to see if you were there at that time? I'll tell you what I would not be interested in seeing. I wouldn't want to see the baby. I mean, I'd want to see the baby based on what I know now, this side of history, because I know the whole story. But if I was in that moment and I didn't know the whole story, I wouldn't care about seeing the baby. And I wouldn't even care about seeing the man Jesus. I would want to see miracles. I would want to see a miracle. Prove to me that this is real. I would want to see the miracles. If I saw the miracles, then belief would be so much easier. All my nagging doubts would vanish. I mean, surely no one who witnessed the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000 or Lazarus being raised from the dead ever had doubts again, did they? If I only could have seen God's power displayed, then I would never doubt again. Or would I? An interesting reality about Jesus and the miracles recorded in the scriptures is that Jesus was really strangely ambivalent about them. I mean, he healed people, he did miracles, but he didn't heal everybody. There's one story where he went to this town called Bethsaida, and there was this pool. There's kind of this superstition that an angel would stir the waters. When you saw the stirring of the waters, you got to run to the water, get in, and you get healed. And so there's all these people by this pool in Bethesda, sick people, lame people, paralyzed people, blind people. And Jesus came into that space, and he healed this one lame guy who couldn't get to the pool in time. Everybody else got in ahead of him. But that's it. It goes on to say, and then Jesus slipped away from the crowd. Why didn't he just heal everybody? Why did he slip away from the crowd? I mean, he left people sick, maybe some of them dying. Why? I mean, Jesus, just prove yourself already. Show who you are. Do miracles. Heal everybody. Show who you are. There's actually one place in the scriptures where he does point to the miracles. He says, well, if you're not going to believe because of this, well, believe because of the miracles. But most of the time, Jesus downplayed the miracles. He would actually heal someone and say, now don't tell anybody about it. Why? Well, I think there's a number of reasons, but one of the reasons may be because he knew the horrible track record of belief among people who actually did witness the miraculous. Actually, it turns out that the witnessing miracles and the power of God does not have all that much power to stir real faith in people and remove all doubts. Take the Israelites, for example. Who saw more power of God's stuff than the ancient Israelites in Exodus? I mean, the Israelites witnessed the crossing of the Red Sea and the plagues of Egypt and the water from the rock in the wilderness, and yet the whole history of the people of Israel at that time was a record of unbelief and rebellion and grumbling and complaining. Or take a New Testament example, the Transfiguration. Peter, James, and John, Jesus' three closest disciples, he takes them up this mountain, and an amazing supernatural event takes place. God unveils, takes off the veil of his flesh, and they see Jesus as he is. In all his glory, he does radiate, he does glow at that point. It was an amazing supernatural experience. They saw Jesus as he is. If I saw the Transfiguration, I would never doubt again. But 2 weeks later, those who saw that event all ran away when Jesus was arrested, and Peter denied 3 times that he even knew him. And that troubles me. I mean, if even after witnessing the transfiguration, they still doubted, if that was still not enough for them, well, I could maybe say, well, Jesus, just do more. If he just did more works of power, more miracles, prove who you are. In fact, if you would just do that here, show your glory right here in this space at Ocean 5, in this service, would you just show who you are? Would you just dispel the tension that comes with faith? Reveal your power. Let us see you, see your glory. I mean, isn't that what an all-powerful God would do? Flex your muscles, God. Be God, for heaven's sake. There's another scene I'll point out, and this one also troubles me. Jesus, he's coming to Jerusalem and toward the end of his life, and as he comes over this hill, he sees the city. And it says he cries out. It says literally he weeps. He's weeping. And he says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how long I have wanted to gather you to me like a mother hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were unwilling. You were not willing. Not willing? Are you kidding me? What do you mean not willing? I mean, he's God. Make them willing. Be God. Flex your muscles. Instead, he weeps. I like the compassion there, but I would have also liked to see power displayed. More power. Just fix them. Make them believe. Make them willing. Why doesn't he just fix them? I don't know for sure the answer to that question, but I think Soren Kierkegaard gives part of the answer. Kierkegaard was a 19th century Danish philosopher. He's also Christian. And he once told a story to try to answer that question. Why doesn't God give us more proof of his power and majesty and glory so that we could really believe? I'm going to read this parable of Kierkegaard. Suppose there was a king who loved a humble maiden. The king was like no other king. Every statesman trembled before his power. No one dared breathe a word against him, for he had the strength to crush all opponents. And yet, this mighty king was melted by love for a humble maiden. How could he declare his love for her? In an odd sort of way, his very kingliness tied his hands. If he brought her to the place and crowned her, if he brought her to the palace and crowned her head with jewels and clothed her body in royal robes, she would surely not resist. No one dared resist him. But would she love him? And how would he know she loved him? I mean, she would say she loved him, of course, but would she truly? Or would she live with him in fear, nursing a private grief for the life she had left behind? Would she be happy at his side? How could he know? If he rode to her forest cottage in his royal carriage with an armed escort waving bright banners, that too would overwhelm her. He did not want a cringing subject. He wanted a lover, an equal. He wanted her to forget that he was a king and she a humble maiden, and to let shared love cross over the gulf between them. For it is only in love that the unequal can be made equal. The king, convinced he could not elevate the maiden without crushing her freedom, resolved to descend. He clothed himself as a beggar and approached her cottage incognito with a worn cloak fluttering loosely about him. It was no mere disguise, but a new identity he took on. He renounced the throne to win her hand. God, who has come to us in the man Christ Jesus, desires what power could never win. He is a king who wants not just subservience, he wants your love. Therefore, rather than force himself on us or make us believe with brute force, like a Roman legion would do, what's what they did, they forced their ways and beliefs on other peoples. Instead, Christ chose the slow way, the upside down way of incarnation, love, and death. It was a conquest from within. I want to win them, Christ says. I want to win their love. I want to woo them. But for Christ to do that for humanity, he had to become ordinary. He had to become one of us. And so this Christmas, we celebrate the time when God turned the volume down. He became ordinary. He had to find a way to appear to us without beginning every sentence with "fear not." As Philip Yancey writes, "And what could be less scary than a newborn baby with jerky limbs and eyes that do not quite focus? In Jesus, born in a barn or a cave or laid in a feeding trough, God found at last a mode of approach that humanity need not fear. The King had cast off his robes." The King had cast off his robes. He came in a hidden way so that we would seek him and find him. And he did it this way so that because he didn't want to just overpower us with his glory. That doesn't work. Because he wants us to embrace him freely in love. Otherwise, it's just robotic allegiance that he would get. And so he came in weakness. He came vulnerable. He came as one of us, ordinary, with the volume turned down. He came as the unexpected king. He came in an unexpected way. Or let me put it this way. He came into our upside down world, and he came to our upside down lives, our broken lives. He came to you, he came to me, but he did it, he came in that upside down way so that ultimately through Christ he could turn our lives, your lives, my lives, right side up. And that is the true meaning of Christmas.
We thought you'd come with a crown of gold, a string of pearls, a cashmere robe. We thought you'd clench an iron fist and rain like fire on the politics. But without a sword, no armor guard, but common
It's okay to have doubts, but no, he is real. He just can't appear in this glorious way without sacrificing our freedom to come to him, without him really forcing us to believe. And so hear his still small voice. He speaks to every one of you. He loves you. He's on your side. He came 2,000 years ago. He died on the cross for you and for me. And he is here right now in this room. And one day, he will turn everything right side up. He's in the process of doing that right now. But he had to come in that very ordinary way as one of us to do that. And he still comes to us in that way until that final day when he is exalted above all things and we do see him face to face and we're changed into his image because we'll see him as he is. And so as we come to the table of the Lord, this too, he has given us a very ordinary way of coming to him. What is more ordinary than eating and drinking? And so he uses things like bread and wine to put the new life into us. And so we remember that our Lord Jesus, on the night in which he was betrayed, he took